Nationwide, protests are being described as peaceful in cities and towns across the nation as demonstrators call for change in the wake of George Floyd's death. Tom Hansen has the story from New York, where a curfew has just been lifted.
Demonstrators in Buffalo paused for a moment of silence as they gathered to protest the death of George Floyd in the custody of the Minneapolis police. There were also large crowds in Savannah, Georgia, Denver, and Chicago, all calling for racial justice and police reforms. Hands up! In New York City, after several days of mostly peaceful protests, the mayor ended the 8 p.m. curfew.
And honestly, I hope it's the last time we will ever need a curfew in New York City.
Here in Times Square, demonstrators gathered Sunday calling for ways to hold the police more accountable for their actions.
We have had enough! We have had enough!
In Washington, D.C., President Trump tweeted he's pulling back the National Guard, but he promised to bring them back quickly if needed. Earlier on Sunday, Representative John Lewis visited a street mural near Lafayette Park. The civil rights leader says he's been moved by the protests he's seen.
A send a mighty, powerful, and strong message.
Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer who held Floyd on the ground with his knee, makes his first court appearance Monday. He's charged with second-degree murder. In Houston, where Floyd grew up, a public viewing is scheduled for tomorrow, with a private burial on Tuesday. Tom Hansen, New York.
Another day of demonstrations took place in Ventura County. This protest at the Government Center follows protests in Oxnard and Simi Valley organized by teens on Friday. Many of those cities are linked to controversial police cases. Today, participants held signs and wore masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19, but participants said they wouldn't let the pandemic keep them from speaking out about Black Lives Matter or the death of George Floyd. And you can hear the accents in London. Thousands protested against racism outside the U.S. Embassy today. They gathered to voice their anger at police brutality after the killing of George Floyd. American pop icon Madonna was seen joining the Black Lives Matter protest. It appears to show the singer talking to protesters outside Downing Street, the residence of Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Protesters in Bristol, England, pulled down a statue of a slave trader today before dropping it into the city's river. The statue of Edward Colston had been a focal point of controversy for years. It took place amid similar protests worldwide supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. Some Black Lives Matter supporters added to a street mural at the Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. last night. The mural now says defund police. Before the change, Mayor Muriel Bowser says the words Black Lives Matter were emblazoned on the street to mark momentous change. Today, she was asked about the new mural. This is what she said.
Well, it's not a part of the mural, and we certainly encourage expression, but we are using the city streets for city art.
When asked if the city will paint over it, she said she has not had an opportunity to review that. A pilot in Canada took to the skies in support of protests rallying against the death of George Floyd. The pilot flew a flight path Thursday in the shape of a raised fist. The sign has become a symbol of Black Lives Matter and a symbol against racism. It took the pilot more than 2 hours to finish the image. Since the drawing was done on a flight path, only radar could detect his drawing. Slow City firefighters are responding to a vegetation fire near Los Osos Valley Road and Highway 101 in San Luis Obispo. Fire and smoke was seen near the top of the hills. That fire is about 1/8 of an acre, and it's burning at a slow rate of speed. Firefighters say units are attempting to make access, but there are winds. For the latest updates, go to our website or our mobile app. Time now for our first look at the weather. Sean Quinn is here. And Sean, a red flag warning is in effect tonight for the south coast of Santa Barbara County.
Yeah, and a lot of other issues as well. We'll get right to it. And the reason being, the big culprit is a lot of wind out here, especially out in the western portion of the channel and getting into just about all of our areas. So yes, indeed, the wind. We have a storm to our north. Typically for us, it means wind, and that's exactly what we are seeing. So we'll go ahead and add the more color to this. And I know it looks like a couple of 6-year-olds might have gotten into a fight with a Crayola box, but here we go. Right here, we do have along the central coast, we have a wind advisory, which will go through tonight. And then as we move down, we go into a wind warning level for Santa Barbara County. And then if I go to Ventura County, which also this issue will extend up into Santa Barbara, we have red flag condition. Let's see if we can get that to pop up. Yeah, fire weather warning. That will go for the next couple of days or so. And then to add one more to it, we go to Ventura County right here along the coastal plain. And because we are seeing the hints of a pretty strong Santa Ana event tomorrow and then lingering into Tuesday, we have heat advisory conditions mainly located right there and then down into Southern California. So when I come back, we'll clean up the map a little bit here and kind of break it down issue by issue and also talk about Cristobal, which is in the Gulf of Mexico. Tracy, I'll send it back to you, and a very busy weather forecast is minutes away.
I like that, looking at like crayons. An update now, as you saw first in an exclusive last night. The search for a missing Santa Barbara nurse has expanded across state lines. Santa Barbara police say they have found no signs of foul play, but they are continuing to search for Ashley Zachman. The 36-year-old has been missing since her shift at Cottage Hospital on Friday, May 29th. Police found her phone inside her home, but her white Mazda is missing. Santa Barbara police checked hotels, surveillance video, and interviewed co-workers. If you've seen her or know where she is, you're urged to contact Santa Barbara police. A sheriff's deputy is dead and 2 other officers are injured after a shooting in Santa Cruz County. Tonight, the U.S. Air Force is saying that the suspect was an active duty sergeant who may be linked to the death of a federal officer shot and killed in Oakland more than a week ago. Officials say the suspect, Stephen Carrillo, ambushed other officers with gunfire and explosive devices while they were responding to reports of a suspicious-looking van. 38-year-old Sergeant Damon Gutzweiler was shot and killed. A second Santa Cruz County deputy was struck by gunfire or shrapnel and then struck by a car. That deputy is now in critical condition. A CHP officer was injured after being shot in the hand. The suspect was stationed at Travis Air Force Base. He was shot and arrested for murder after being released from the hospital. Now to a crime alert. Santa Maria police are investigating a triple stabbing. They say it happened just before 11 last night on the 400 block of North Railroad Avenue near the Town Center Mall. All 3 victims were hospitalized, but the extent of their injuries is not clear. And Santa Maria police are also investigating an armed carjacking. It happened after midnight near Lolita Lane and Lincoln Street near the Western Village Shopping Center off Broadway. Police tweeted this picture with a caption saying, quote, "Criminals don't take days off even during these trying times." Police say they received more than 300 service calls on Saturday. Still ahead, we'll speak to students leading the peaceful Black Lives Matter protest in Santa Barbara. And some flights will be cut at the Santa Barbara airport. That's ahead on your local news channel, live at 6. Many students from schools throughout the area took part in a peaceful protest this afternoon. News Channel reporter Blake Devine shares how these teens united together with members of the police department.
As protests against racial injustice continue throughout the country, San Marcos high school student Shakir Ahmad decided he was not going to stay quiet.
The youth and everyone here came to let you know that we still support the demands that Black Lives Matter SB.
With the support of students from schools throughout town, he organized a powerful demonstration.
If we have all the youth, because we're the next generation in this fight, if we have all of us banded together and we have say our demands that we've made, then I think we can make a change.
He saw like the last other protests and wanted to really put something together of the youth because we're the next generation. It's really impactful, our words.
As a large crowd formed near Stearns Wharf,
We ain't taking no more.
people united together through song, dance, and spirit.
I don't think anyone understands the extent of how amazing it really is. And it's really beautiful.
It just shows that people realize this is an issue and they want change.
Unlike most of these protests, these teams have teamed up with the Santa Barbara Police Department in order to achieve peace.
They reached out to me actually and they said they wanted to be a part of helping out, and of course I let them help, so I want this to be as safe as possible for everybody.
And our command staff worked in unison with those protest organizers to protect their inherent right to peacefully protest.
They also helped them march down State Street with a police escort.
And I think it's important to keep them peaceful because that's the way people are going to listen.
Upon arrival at the police department, every member of the police took a knee in solidarity.
This is exactly what we wanted to happen, and we're grateful to the thousands of youth that were here. We heard their voice, we heard their unison, and we look forward to working with them.
Looking ahead, these teens hope to inspire everlasting change.
I hope that they look at this protest and see that the younger generation isn't going to stand for something like this, as well as part of the older generation, and that we're actually going to make a change.
In Santa Barbara, I'm News Channel reporter Blake Devine.